Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am Emily. I am the Marketing and Communications Manager for Talenza. And I just wanted to quickly introduce you to our presenter today. So this is Claire. She's the Associate Director of Customer Operations and Strategy at Talenza. So since joining at Talenza, Claire has spearheaded the establishment of our dedicated customer team. She has over 10 years of experience in recruitment projects, operations and transformation projects in both Australia and the UK. So I'm very pleased that you're all able to join us today, and I will hand over to Claire to take it from here.
Thanks, Emily. So welcome everyone, and thank you so much again for joining. So I'm just going to take you through the agenda and what we'll cover on the webinar today. So we'll go into a short introduction to the report and findings, look at the EVP drivers in the report. We'll take a look at what role salary plays, what are the drivers by geography, so looking at Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, what motivates and drives our senior leadership and C-suite to stay and strive, what the different genders want, and also what are the generational drivers. At the end, we'll close with a Q&A. I will work through the webinar from kind of start to finish. So if anyone has any questions as we work through the presentation, feel free to drop those in the chat function and we'll come back to those at the end. So firstly, looking at the research, as we know, evolution isn't an uncharted territory for a technology company. And the last 24 months have definitely shown us what we can truly do to move the needle. So to keep pace with this level of digital transformation, companies are looking for a labour force at the top of the game. As we all know, demand is higher than ever. And whilst it's not necessarily a newsflash, many businesses haven't yet come to terms with the repercussions that they may face because of this. So retention and attrition issues have long been in the sights of technology leaders, and employees are at a higher risk of feeling isolated and disconnected from their workplace since the rise of work from home. So how can companies check this pulse? So what we did was survey over 700 Australian technology, digital and business transformation employees and contractors to find out what has motivated their moves or reasons to stay in a role over the last 12 months. The research aims to provide you all with insights into how different groups are challenged so that as companies we can acknowledge, celebrate and respond to differences in the workforce and to help us build more sustainable and engaged teams. So just a snapshot of the people we surveyed. So our respondents, as mentioned, were technology, digital and business transformation experts across Australia. And all respondents either currently working or are looking to join a company in a technology or project services role. So what did we uncover? I'm going to go through here some of the key findings, which is just a summary of what's in the full report that you should have all received. So 38% of respondents indicated a lack of purpose in their current job, motivated them to change roles with a new employer. 65% of females put flexible working arrangements in their top 5 candidate drivers. And 46% of senior leaders said a mismatch between the organisation's values and their own contributed to them looking for a new role. We also saw 80% of respondents said non-monetary benefits are important to them. 22% of respondents who intend on changing jobs in the next 12 months say it's because they believe their salary is lower than it could be. 59% of contractors said that flexible working arrangements is one of their top 5 drivers. So why does this all matter? KPMG's annual survey of Australian CEOs and emerging leaders uncovered that talent retention, attraction and upskilling are the main issues keeping CEOs up at night. If you have a quick Google, it'll give you another 20 reports talking about the same challenges at all levels. So whilst we're seeing job ads at a record high and skilled migrants at record lows, it's never been more important to listen to your people and respond. Now, just looking at the talent shortage and how does this link to EVP, there are more employees than ever tapping into the same talent pools. And this is driving an increase in job vacancies locally. In February of this year, total job vacancies were just over 423,000, which is an increase of nearly 7% from just November 2021. So with this level of demand, success in the talent space can only come by knowing exactly what people want. So as we move into some of the EVP drivers, firstly, I just wanted to go through what is an employee value proposition. So in short, an EVP is a promise that an employer makes to an employee in return for their effort and commitment. Your EVP really needs to be the core of your employee brand and should characterise the culture, mission and vision of your organisation and why it is unique. So if we look at some of the attributes of an EVP, there are a number of different attributes to EVP, which we cover in the full report, such as cares about the environment, career progression, values alignment and purpose. However, for the purpose of the webinar today, we're just going to cover the following. So how is salary a driver? What are our different drivers by location? So as mentioned, across Sydney, Brisbane and Melbourne. What are the specific drivers for senior leaders and executive talent? What are drivers for women? And finally, what are the drivers by generational profile? So when we look at the attributes of an EVP, we took a look at what is motivating people to stay, strive or flee to a greener pasture. Our respondents this year told us they're placing a higher importance on attractive salary, flexible working arrangements, work-life balance, career progression, and a financially healthy company. Each of these drivers, however, could probably be considered hygiene factors, so not necessarily factors that are going to increase motivation, but instead decrease dissatisfaction. And I'll go a little bit more about what this means on the next slide. So when we look at hygiene factors, as I mentioned, they're not necessarily going to be the drivers to make people want to work harder or to motivate them, but they are factors that will decrease job satisfaction according to the Herzberg's motivation two-factor theory. So when we look at this theory, it's not around necessarily how we attract talent, but how can we make sure that we're keeping people happy and making them stay? So how do the drivers that we've just gone through fit into the model? So whilst we're seeing salary, flexibility and work-life balance remain the top drivers, offering interesting job content this year has dropped from number 6 to number 10, as we see people are prioritising well-being and security above it. So we can see in this model how some of the EVP drivers listed are increasing motivation, and on the flip side, decreasing job dissatisfaction. So if we look at some of the hygiene factors that without would decrease job dissatisfaction, that would be a lack of attractive salary, no flexible working arrangements, and no work-life balance. However, if we look at the areas on the flip side, which increase job satisfaction, so they're the motivator factors, that's looking at strong leadership, career progression, and provides good training. If we take a look at how salaries played a part, 58% of respondents who said they moved jobs with the same organisation said they'd receive a salary increase of between 6 and 20%. And as inflation rises, this is a trend that will continue. 47% of people who intend on changing jobs in the next 12 months indicated that non-monetary benefits are also very important to them. If we compare those who switched jobs in the last 12 months and those who stayed, the salary increases were generally higher for those who switched. So how important is salary? Probably the question that everyone wants to know. Our respondents overall said it was definitely more important than it was last year. So how are other employers viewing salary? So here's a snapshot of how people's salaries move for stayers, switchers, and those who found a new role internally. So a few key points to highlight. Those who stayed in a role have typically seen some growth in their salary. Those who switched companies saw the greatest upswing in salary. And those who switched roles internally also saw growth. So probably a key call out here is companies and people are using money to retain as well as attract. So don't wait for a counter offer to review where your salary sits with the market. Is salary number one for everyone? There were a number of segments that we'll highlight that didn't rate salary as their number one driver, but here are 3 that we don't mention elsewhere that we want to point out. Females and contractors both said that flexible working arrangements was the most important attribute. People who would change roles but to a new role internally said that supporting a good work-life balance and offering flexible working environments were more important to them and rated these number 1 and number 2. Linked to this is internal mobility, and interestingly, this group also did not rate an attractive salary as number 1. We can actually see that 58% of people noted they saw an increase in salary for staying with their current company, and it's great to see this happening. If we then take a look at the split by geography, what we definitely saw is what people want depends on where they live. So Sydney saw really similar drivers to last year, but there were some slight changes. So in 2021 and 22, candidates responded that salary was the number 1 driver for Sydney. However, the percentage of Sydney respondents that said this was in their top 5 drivers dropped slightly. If we compare Sydney to Brisbane and Melbourne, we can see they have the smallest percentage of people seeing an attractive salary as a driver to either stay or join a new employer. So despite the rising cost of living, less people in Sydney are noting attractive salary as a top driver when considering to stay with an employer or join a new one. This year, 5% more Sydney-siders also said a financially stable company is among their top 5 most important factors. This is a trend we've also noticed in senior leaders rating a financially stable company higher than we've ever seen before. So as we all know, security comes in many forms. And so whilst personal financial security and attractive salaries are important, people are understanding more than ever the impacts that external factors have had on their future, i.e. the pandemic. And so they want to be in a company that they know has demonstrated success in hard times. Taking a look at Melbourne, Melbourne saw a really big shift in work-life balance, dropping from number 1 to number 4. This could be attributed to mental health impacts of the 2021 Melbourne lockdowns and really shows how people's motivations can change over time. And finally, looking at Brisbane, in 2021, work-life balance was number 1 for Brisbane, but now it's moved to number 2, with attractive salary taking it out. The idea that you can work from anywhere is leveling the playing fields, and we've seen some salary inflation coming from Brisbane. Candidates are definitely more demanding, and we're finding that companies are paying. Moving on to senior leaders and executive talent. So what are some of the EVP drivers for executives? So we found 46% of senior leaders said a mismatch between personal values and those of the organisation contributed to the decision to change jobs. In 2021, having strong management was a priority for senior leaders. However, this year it's dropped from 4th to 13th place for this group. A financially healthy workplace jumped from number 9 to number 2, as leaders are looking for more stability after being succumbed to a lot of choices outside of their control during the pandemic. Interestingly, 100% of female executives said that a poor relationship with their manager or colleagues contributed to them wanting to change, but only 46% of male executives said the same. So how does a bad boss affect employer brand? There's a quote here from Jonas Fisher, who's the co-founder of Peer Culture, who says, employees often see their CEO as the embodiment of the company's core values. So whilst a leader is certainly not the brand, great leaders are the difference makers when we think of world-class, exceptional employer brands. When a crisis occurs, it can be an opportunity for the organisation to reinforce their values by making the situation right. The key here is how they respond. So managers and executives are key to helping formulate EVP and how it's embodied across the business. Making sure that they feel supported to do this and that the EVP actually aligns with their values is a crucial part of the recruitment process for executives. When we take a look at gender, what did we hear that women want? So 65% of females rated flexible working arrangements in their top 5, giving it the #1 spot, which is also consistent with last year's results. As females still remain the primary caregiver across Australia, flexibility is one way that we can move to an organisation towards new beliefs and out of the 80s. So the old belief, it's an employee's job to parent their child. The new belief, it's an organisation's job to empower employees to be the best version of themselves as employees and as parents. What did we find when we looked at females and money? So 31% of females who've changed jobs received a salary increase between 11 and 20% in the last 12 months. Out of those who stayed with their current employer, 24% received the same. 44% of males who got a new job in the last 12 months also got a pay rise between 11 and 20%. And for the males that stayed put, 30% got between 11 and 20% rise. So what we're seeing there is overall males saw larger gains in the last 12 months. And for a country that seems committed to closing the gender pay gap, our results definitely tell us that we still have a way to go. And finally, looking at the generational profile. So if we want to attract more employees, we need to make sure that all groups feel included. So if we look at Gen Z, definitely a new era in tech. And as far as Gen Z is concerned, tech for tech's sake is over. So with this new era comes a shift in attitude. As a result, we're revisiting ways to retain talent and approach the workforce. Our research has showed us that for Gen Z, career trajectory and training are 2 factors that are at the forefront of career decision-making. We take a look at millennials. Millennials were the first generation to grow up as digital natives. They test, learn, and question the status quo. And millennials have typically used time, money, and knowledge as their currencies, arguably better than the baby boomer and Gen X forefathers. So they have been the ones to really shake up how we retain and attract talent. Millennials definitely value their time different to the baby boomers and are now looking to get some of their time back while banking on their experience to earn the extra cash. Gen X, as we knew, grew up in the times of recession after World War II. So it's to no surprise they've continued placing priority on a good financial health of a company. And for our baby boomers, it seems like baby boomers have really taken on board some lessons from the younger generation and are now looking for more interesting job content, but only if the company has strong values. So as a community, it's really important to make sure all groups feel included and represented to avoid anyone feeling isolated or underappreciated. So we've covered off quite a lot of information there. Like I say, that was just a snapshot from the full report, which we have shared with you all. Would really like to open up to the room to see if anyone's got any questions or any comments on what we've just covered.
So if you do have any questions, there should be a Q&A function, so you are able to pop them in there, or the chat is fine as well. I think we still have a few minutes to close out, so we'll leave you with a couple of minutes to ask some questions. Just, I guess, while we're going through this, Claire, what is one of the most interesting facts that you found out exploring this research?
I'd probably say one of the facts that really stands out to me is around the senior executives, where 100% of senior execs actually said that a bad relationship with their boss and with their colleagues would make them want to move roles. I thought that was a really interesting one.
Yeah, I think that was for females, wasn't it?
Yes. How about for you?
Yep. I think the salary information was quite interesting, noting that Sydney has put less of a priority on salary in this year's report findings, but also how companies are using salary. We know that, inflation, the cost of living is going up. But I guess, comparing that to the, priority that Sydney in particular is putting on salary, it's interesting, and particularly the shifts across geography. But like you, definitely the senior leadership, I think that's a really interesting
I think
one.
100% is just it's a very strong statistic.
Absolutely.
So we haven't had any questions yet. Like we say, if anyone does have any questions, then please feel free to put those in the chat function.
Yep.
Alternatively, if there's no questions or nothing that comes to mind right now, my contact details are on the screen. More than happy for anyone to reach out via email or phone if you'd like to have a further discussion with either myself or Emily, or there's any questions you'd like to ask after today's session.
So I think we've just had a question come through here. Are there metrics around staff attrition between smaller startups, medium-sized company to larger companies? Now, I feel like I'm just going to go off the cuff here and say that there should be some sort of documentation or reporting around this. We personally don't report on anything like that, but I have certainly seen some information that's been pulled into various news articles and things like that. So I'm happy to do a little bit of research after and send it to you. This question's come through as anonymous, so if you wanted to pop Claire an email, I'm sure we can round up some information for you and send it across. Did you have anything to add, Claire?
No, I think definitely say if you want to pop me an email, as like I say, it's come through anonymous, and we can work with Emily and the team to see what we can pull together and send through.
Lovely.
Okay, so it looks like we probably don't have any other questions for the session today. So just want to finish off by thanking everyone for taking the time out of their morning to join. Just reiterating again, if anyone has any questions or comments or would like to discuss anything further, please don't hesitate to give me a call or drop me an email. Otherwise, I hope everyone has a great rest of your morning and we'll speak to you all soon.